What exactly is fourth generation warfare? Well, it's a concept that was brought up in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas in the year 2000. And it came to my attention when COVID 19 lockdowns began. Mike Decker and I were doing live streams from Warland, Wyoming, and we literally had soldiers Skyping us and live streaming with us, explaining that what we were seeing was fourth generation warfare. It wasn't a pandemic, it was fourth generation warfare. And I didn't know what that was. So let's look at this real quick, just the abstract. Many Americans associate the fall of Rome with Alaric and the Visigoths and other warrior peoples from the north. But serious students understand Rome's decline was slow and from within. I want you to remember that. Serious students, that would be us, understand that Rome's decline was slow and from within. Ralph Peters writes, in its confident years, the Roman Empire had been absorptive and tolerant. For centuries, these qualities lent strength and co-opted new subjects, but ultimately core identities and commitments to the Romans' idea were fatally diluted. It was those who refused to be absorbed and who rejected toleration who outlasted the greatest empire the earth knew until our own century. Peters goes on to say that his thought-provoking essay, Our New Old Enemies, that Pontius Pilate's refusal to face the difficult choices by wishing away the problem was symbolic what was wrong with Rome, even at its apex of power. A cancer that had already invaded a society more content in debating than deciding. Debating than deciding. It's Biden's fault. It's Trump's fault. It's the Democrats. It's the Republicans. It's the economy. It's China. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you understand why I'm reading this to you? A cancer had already invaded a society more content in debating than deciding. Ultimately, the Romans were chronically late to respond to challenges and torn asunder by the declining self-confidence in their own ideals, self-identity, and self-imposed ignorance from the real threat from within. Are there parallels to American history? Some would say so. This was written in the year 2000. This was published in 2000. In 1989, the authors of an article entitled The Changing Face of War into the Fourth Generation offered a glimpse of the future rooted in the past. They postulated America in crisis conditioned over time to accept tolerance and reject its unifying Western identity in favor of a new order of multiculturalism. To accept tolerance, everybody's gay, 5-year-olds know what they should be, and they should instruct their parents to, do as they say, and reject the fact that you're a white, straight, God-fearing American or any color American. You know what I'm saying? I shouldn't just say white, but you're not allowed to say white in this country anymore. This was in 2000. This was published. Remember this. The position initially found little traction until such notables as Martin Van Creveld, Samuel Huntington, and Robert Kaplan independently confirmed in the 1990s what the authors of the article have been saying all along. The authors of The Changing Face of War argue that the decline of the West in a world rife with cultural conflicts and the powerful influences of a form of cultural Marxism known as political correctness were combining in America to create conditions for a new generation of warfare. Their vision included a form of warfare that bypassed the military altogether to strike directly at the culture itself. They believed that the abandonment of Western Judeo-Christian culture in lieu of multicultural state where individuality was prized above national identity risked internal divide and eventual collapse of the society. This fragmentation left the national military wanting in both strategy and structure. The resulting decay would generate the conditions necessary to facilitate the aggressions of the modern-day Visigoths. This paper looks at some of the serious issues in the proposal and asks whether the Army is doing enough to address these serious threats. It only goes on to write here, but I covered what I wanted to here. The message is brutally clear. It is the very psychological nature of man that stands most starkly in defiance of peaceful progression, and it is he on which we must apply our greatest resources through education. I will leave a link to this paperwork because I believe we're already in fifth generation warfare, but it's tough to tell. But I want you to see this right here. I've shown you this before. I'll show it to you again. According to Wikipedia, fourth generation warfare is a conflict characterized by a blurring of the lines between war, politics, combatants, and civilians. Now you combine all of what I just said with this. This is from 2013. This is from foreignpolicy.com. I'm sorry. When the U.S. government repeals a law that does not allow them to use propaganda against their own citizens, our government repealed a law that protected us from them lying to us through every means necessary, including the mainstream news. That's what they did. I was telling people about this for years and nobody cared. But you take this, you combine it with this, and instead of having airplanes flying over from a foreign country bombing us and hitting us with smart bombs and Chinese guys flooding into our east and west coast, instead, they simply do this. Oops.
What the heck?
So one of my subscribers hit me up and said, Richie, a tanker truck just exploded in Maryland. And I was thinking to myself, that's crazy because you never hear of a tanker just simply exploding. But here's the deal. This is what these guys are doing. Food plants being blown up. Chemical plants being blown up. Trains being derailed with massive cargoes of weapons of mass destruction grade chemicals leaking into the air, the soil, the food, the water, the plants, everything. And in places where they don't have chemical plants, they simply use mobile chemical plants like tanker trucks. Well, Richie, this was just an accident. Yeah, was it? Because this was very close to Fort Detrick in Maryland, and then about a mile away, later on the same day, another truck owned by the same company, which is Sheetz, Sheetz, apparently had an issue as well and dumped everywhere. This is what he sent me yesterday. Wanted to share this with you. They're calling it a Sheetz gas tanker explosion. This is right near Fort Detrick here in Frederick, Maryland. The smoke plume is absolutely massive, and today is exceptionally windy. And then a few minutes later, he sends me another email saying, oh, my mistake. Another truck owned by Sheetz Gas is either exploded or is simply dumping its chemical payload into the water. That is fourth generation warfare. That's how they're doing it. I don't know how many more times I need to say it for it to finally sink in, because this is pretty obvious. I mean, have you ever noticed that absolutely everything is just simply exploding at all times now? All the time, every place you go, everywhere you look. And then after this makes a big splash on Facebook, the same exact source suddenly switches over to a cop kills somebody. You know what I mean? So to take attention off of this little fun, little happy thing right here, right away there's a cop shooting, police involved, fatal shooting. You know, just to keep everything cool. You see what I'm saying? But crazy. I couldn't possibly explain it enough. This is me, if you didn't know that. I snuck back into Facebook somehow because I'm basically erased from the internet for the most part. Not completely, but for the most part. These guys are not messing around. This is actually really happening, and you will not get any notice when the tanker or the power plant or whatever happens in your town. I've never seen so many explosions over and over again. And then, oh yeah, get your money out of the bank. Period. A lot of people have done this, and I'm stoked for you. And I haven't had anybody complain about it. So there is that. I don't know what to tell you. These people still work in the mainstream world, but it doesn't matter. They get your money out of the bank, they turn it into gold and silver, and they give it to you. Period. Gold and silver always has been and always will be. But check this out. This was another little strange thing I noticed. Well, it's not here today, but yesterday, all over, everything trending was UFOs. UFOs, UFOs, UFOs. People are seeing them absolutely everywhere. And I believe that is the vehicle that they will use to trick all the people that live on this earth with us, which really sucks, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? It is amazing how much the mainstream is pushing this narrative now. It's astonishing to me how we've been laughed at for years and ridiculed, and we're idiots, and we're this, and we're that, and the other thing, and UFOs aren't real. Oh, yeah, it turns out they were. Oh, the COVID shot's not hurting anybody. Oh, yeah, it turns out that it is. Oh, COVID's not actually even real. It's simply doctors and medical schools forcing doctors to relabel any ailment as COVID and then move forward from there. That, ladies and gentlemen, is fourth generation warfare. They're fighting a war using information and words. And then, of course, they're absolutely destroying the earth. And they seem to be focusing on the Northeast right now. So there, as they say, is that. Get your money out of the bank. The banks are on deck. We haven't heard anything about the banks in a while because they've been too busy blowing things up, but it is the next thing on deck. Don't get caught with your pants down or whatever. Do what you feel is right. Your call. At any rate, Richie from Boston. If you don't have it, get it. Links are below. I'm out.